Hi there, and welcome back to the Learn and Work Smarter podcast. This is our Q&A episode for August. If you are new here, once a month I answer questions that are submitted by listeners of the show, and that includes students and working professionals. I usually try to answer 2 questions because I try to keep these episodes to around 25 to 35 minutes, so that is what we've got today. 2 questions. One is submitted by a student and one is from a professional. So there is a little bit for everybody today. Now, I usually begin each of my Q&A episodes with a reminder that listening to other people ask questions and hearing the answers to those questions often taps into some of our own questions that we didn't even know we had. So I encourage you all to listen all the way through and see if you can grab some nuggets to start implementing in your own life. I am going to answer the student question first. So if you have absolutely no relevance to student life whatsoever, then you can jump ahead to the next question, but you could also share this episode with a student you know. That would be awesome. With that out of the way, I think that we are ready to jump into our first question about college. Hello, you are listening to the Learn and Work Smarter podcast, the podcast for students and professionals who want to learn and work smarter. I'm your host, executive function coach, and founder of schoolhabits.com, Katie Azevedo. As a reminder, everything I mention in today's episode will be linked in the show notes, including a link to the transcript, which you can also find at learnandworksmarter.com/podcast. Okay, today I'm answering a question that I think a lot of college students have, or even high school students who are headed to college have this question without even knowing that they have it. So let me read the question. Hi, Katie. This isn't really a specific question, but I'm wondering what's something about college that's underrated and not many people know about? Oh man, I love this question. Thank you for submitting it. College is full of hidden opportunities, honestly. I mean, there's stuff that everybody knows, like do activities and do clubs and, connect with people. But, there's so many other opportunities that many students don't know exist, or maybe they've heard of them, but they misunderstand what those opportunities are and maybe think that they're not for them. And that's a huge loss, because some of these lesser known resources can honestly make all the difference. They can shape your entire trajectory, both academically and professionally, and in some cases socially. So I plan to share a few of those underrated things. I'm going to go into several, but I'm going to spotlight one in particular that I've seen, sounds so dramatic, but change students' lives, but kind of. So let's start with office hours, okay? Easily one of the most underused, underrated opportunities, whatever, in college. Now, to be fair and honest, I am always fair and honest on this podcast. I never once went to office hours during college. I know. So am I being a hypocrite talking about this? No, I'm here to share what I've learned from my own experience and what I've learned from my own experiences not going to office hours. And I've learned from that. Okay. But I honestly never went once. It just wasn't something that I did, partly because I didn't know what they were for. I'm going to be honest. And partly because I didn't feel like I had anything important enough to bring to a professor one-on-one. I'm not saying this at all to be arrogant or anything, but I didn't struggle in college. I used all of the systems that I teach inside School Habits University, even though, of course, at the time I had no idea they were systems. So I just personally never felt the need to go to professors' office hours, which I think left a lot on the table, and I think I missed some opportunities. But here's what did happen. My senior year, I've talked about this before, I wrote an independent thesis, and that meant meeting regularly with my thesis advisor, who's also the professor of one of my Chaucer classes. Those meetings, even though they were required, ended up being the most meaningful academic conversations I ever had in college. That advisor became the professor that I was closest to by the time I graduated. Now, there were a couple of other professors who had, sign up for individual feedback sessions after a paper or something, but that wasn't something I initiated, but something that was built into the course and required for all of us. But again, those were the moments when I started feeling like a real person in the eyes of my professor, not just a name on a roster, because those short interactions, the thesis advisor meetings, those were long, but even the ones that were required feedback sessions with professors, those built connections. They helped me clarify my thinking. And honestly, they made me wish that I had started earlier. kind of. So no, I didn't use office hours in college, but I did get a glimpse of what happens when you connect with professors outside of lecture time. And I now know firsthand just how much those relationships can deepen your learning. They can sometimes open doors that you never even knew were there. And I'd argue that office hours are critical for everyone, even if you don't think that you're struggling with something. And they are especially important in two situations. First, obviously, if you're not understanding the material, because once you fall behind in college, like in the content, it can be really hard to catch up. There's less hand holding, nobody waits for you, the classes move fast, the material is cumulative. So if you miss something, you kind of like the train keeps going. So the moment you're confused, go to office hours. I should say too that office hours aren't just the professor, it's like the TA, just as good. Second, if you are in a huge lecture class, like 100 students in a stadium style classroom, it is so easy to feel invisible. And honestly, you are invisible unless you do something about it. So introducing yourself, showing up to office hours is how you stop being just a face in the crowd. Because I honestly think that when a professor knows your name and sees that you're engaged, that familiarity, I'm trying, can pay off down the road. Like when you're like a fraction of a point away from the next letter grade, or maybe when you need a recommendation letter, or when you're applying for an internship and you want to list a professor as a reference, if the professor has no idea who you are, they don't really have a reason to help. But if they've seen your initiative, your effort, and your face during office hours, they actually have every reason to advocate for you. So that is one underrated part about college, office hours. Another underrated gem is your school's academic support centers, like the writing center, the subject-specific tutoring centers or whatever, and even the library staff. These are not remedial services, meaning you don't need to be failing anything to use them. In fact, the best students often use them the most. Why? Well, because high performers know how to leverage support. Writing centers can help you sharpen an already good paper. Tutors can help you talk through ideas, even if you're technically passing the class, right? Library staff are trained researchers. Not a lot of people know this, but they can save you hours on a project just by showing you the right tools or, steering you in the right direction. Another one, campus counseling and mental health resources. Most colleges offer some form of free or heavily subsidized counseling. And it's one of the most underutilized services out there. College is hard. It's going to be real. It's hard emotionally. It's hard socially, academically. And even if I'm air quoting this if you're not seeing it on YouTube, but even if you're fine, you still have so much on your plate. I've had students book just a few sessions for things like test anxiety, homesickness, or even dips in their motivation that they can't explain, and then they come out with better coping tools and better self-awareness, even after just a few sessions. That's not going to fix the whole thing, but it's sometimes just enough to get you back on your feet. You don't need a true, again, I'm trying to be mindful of my language and I'm air quoting, you don't need a true diagnosis to benefit, like a mental health diagnosis of some kind to benefit from these services. You just need to care about your own well-being. And if your school offers that kind of support, take it. Nowhere else in your life is that kind of support just going to be available for you. Now, of course, mental health is critical at any point in your life, but in college, it can be a make or break moment if you don't get support when you need it. I had an awesome interview recently with Dr. Jackie Park. That was episode 83. It's all about anxiety in college and what that looks like and how to manage that and how to understand what that looks like. So if that's something that you're dealing with, check out that episode for sure, 83. Some other hidden or underrated gems. I'm not going to go deep into these, but I do have just a few worthy of mention ones. One of them is career services. This is where you can get resume help. You can practice with mock interviews. Those are fun. I always recommend those. You can find research opportunities, all kinds of things. And my recommendation is do not wait until senior year to tap into these services for real. They are available from your first year of college. Another one, libraries and maker spaces. Yes, books, obviously, but also tech rentals, quiet zones like study rooms that you can rent out, free software like Adobe programs and things that normally cost a lot of money, and even 3D printers in some place if that's, relevant for what you're doing. Also, things like museum passes and tickets to local shows, all sorts of cool things are available through your school library. And then alumni networks. These are where you can tap into the huge network of people who graduated from your college. And these are people who have already agreed to be willing and able to meet with you to offer support and mentorship or maybe even career or internship opportunities. I remember years ago, maybe it was like 10 years ago at this point, I don't know, a student from the college I went to reached out, cold email to me and was like, hey, you're listed in our alumni network for Mount Holyoke College, which is where I went for undergrad, and I live in the town next to you, and I'm interested in education. Can we chat? And I was like, yes, of course. And we met for coffee, and it was really good. I mean, I had no job opportunity to offer her, but it was a wonderful conversation, and she was grateful for it, and I would totally do it again. Another one just occurred to me. I remember this is something that I didn't know colleges offered, and maybe not all colleges do, but I think so, is my college would offer you still had to pay for it, but super discounted bus tickets to nearby cities. So my college was in Western Massachusetts, and once a month you could reserve or buy a ticket for super cheap, maybe $10, and the bus would take you to New York City for the what was it, for the day or for the weekend? I forget. I feel like it was for the day. You leave wicked early it was for the day, because I'm there's no way I could have afforded sleeping in New York City for the night. So you show up wicked early in the morning on a Saturday morning, and the bus takes you and then just drops you off in New York City, and you do your own thing. You can go shopping, just go to the park, whatever you want, and then the bus, you all meet at a certain spot and it brings you back to the college later that night. And when else would you be able to just get a prearranged bus to New York City from your doorstop, basically, right? And there were some other cities that they had bus transportation too, but I think New York was the coolest one from where my location was. So check to see if they have weekend adventures. That's something too that's not that obvious, because it's easy to walk through an experience like college thinking that everything important is going to be announced and obvious, but that's really not how it works. The best stuff, the best opportunities is often the stuff you have to go find yourself, because honestly, the resources are there. You just have to be curious and bold enough to use them. Okay, let's move on to the second question. This one is from a working professional who has a question about task management. She writes, I have a planner, but not one with times broken out. I find it does not work well for me. I use a weekly and monthly planner and put my appointments in the little boxes, but I do not put my self-employed work in the planner. Can you suggest the best way to use this type of planner for the day-to-day business tasks, bookkeeper, that I have to do? Okay, I love this question primarily because it gives me permission to talk about planners, and if you've been around the block at all, or if you've met me in real life, you know that I have a strong affinity for a paper planner. Some might call it love, tomato, but I am at heart a planner girl. And this is also a great question because it lets me remind listeners about something that I really try to emphasize on this show. And that's this. As much as I share strategies and systems and tools and frameworks for learning and working smarter, the ultimate skill, the real best way to upgrade yourself in school and work is the ability to evaluate yourself and adjust when things aren't working. There is no single productivity or task management system that works for everybody. So if I'm talking about a particular task management strategy or time management system, I'm never coming from a place of this is the only way it can get done. I'm sharing frameworks and core principles behind learning and working smarter, but the ultimate way to learn and work smarter is to evaluate what you're doing, to evaluate your own systems and evaluate your tools. And ask yourself honestly, are they working for me? Is this way that I'm doing things making my life easier or harder? I have a podcast episode called Are Your Productivity Systems Broken? That's episode 12. I'll leave it linked in the show notes, but that's a really great place to start. And I have a self-evaluation checklist in the show notes of that episode that can help you start that evaluation process. But the listener question indicates that she's already done that work. She's saying, I am using a paper planner, and I have done the work to figure out that a planner with individual time slots, kind of like an appointment planner or like a time blocking planner, doesn't work for me or doesn't work for her, okay? Now, time blocking works for many people, but not for everybody. If you're like, Katie, what the heck is time blocking? I cover that in episode 77. Back to the question. It sounds like you're using a planner with the daily and monthly sections, which is great. And that's what I always recommend. Okay. And you're asking what's the best way to track your daily tasks for work in each day's blank section of the planner. For example, let's say that you have 10 tasks to do on Monday. What's the best approach? Just write all those 10 tasks as a list on Monday's section, or is there a different way to go about this? A couple different ways to think about this. You can absolutely just keep it simple and just write all of the tasks that you have to do on Monday's space. If you have to do them on Monday, you write them on Monday's space. You can prioritize them if you want to, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But the most important thing here is that you are getting them out of your head and onto the paper. For some people, that strategy is enough. Just writing them down in whatever order they occur to you. And then throughout the day, you just work on those tasks in whatever order makes sense for your schedule and your energy and your time. That is the most basic way to go about doing this. But if you're looking for a little more structure, which obviously not the full structure of time blocking, because you already said that doesn't work for you, I'm going to suggest coming up with the top 3. So I do talk all about task management in episode 5. So I really want you to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't, or if it's been a while, maybe listen to it again, even on, 1.5x speed. But there is something to be said about identifying your top 3 tasks for each day and putting those at the top of your list. Now, some people call this the VIP method, so your 3 VIP tasks. I've also heard it called the MIT method, so your most important tasks, MIT. I like to keep it simple, and I just call it your top 3. Okay, this is what I personally do for myself in my own paper planner because I have found that it works for me. This is what I teach inside School Habits University as one strategy. So if you know what your top 3 tasks are for the day, as you are generating your brain dump or your schedule for the day, that's great. And you can just write those top most important, three top most important, I got that all scrambled, 3 most important tasks first, and then list the remaining tasks in whatever order, doesn't matter, I guess. Or if you want to sort of just brain dump all of the tasks that you have to do in a day as they occur to you, you could do that somewhere else, like maybe on a list, right? And not filter, not prioritize, not be like, oh, this has to be first and this second, just get them on a list. And then go back to your list and you can put stars or some kind of indicator next to the 3 that you have identified as the most important. Maybe you do a brain dump on a separate piece of paper and then transfer them over into your planner. And as you transfer them over, you are prioritizing them. That's an extra step, and maybe you're not looking for friction. I would just dump them in your planner and put stars next to the 3 after and they might not be at the top of the page, but there's going to be 3 stars in there. But that's all options for you. Now, a follow-up question I get a lot to this is, well, how do I know what my top 3 are? How do I know what's important? And honestly, that's where the skill of prioritization comes in. I can't tell you what your most important tasks are. From your question, you say you're a bookkeeper. I don't have a lot of experience. Well, I don't have any experience in bookkeeping. So I don't know what those, 3 important tasks are for you. But I will tell you some ways to think about this. I'm going to use my own business, for example, because that's the only experience I have to draw from. I mean, I could talk about other clients too, but most of my other working professionals who have some kind of task management system are at the point where they can identify what their most top 3 are. But then that's usually followed by, but like everything's important. But anyways, I essentially have 2 businesses. I have a brick and mortar business that I run out of a separate office in my hometown. That's where I see students and clients in person or on Zoom. That is my coaching business with private clients. Now, the other part of my business, which takes more time than I like to admit, and than anyone can really imagine, is the digital part of my business. That's the YouTube channel, this podcast, my blog, my School Habits University course. I also have a brand new awesome program available right now to everybody. There's no waiting, called the College Note-Taking Power System. I will leave that link below. Hint, it's only $47 and it's pretty sick for college students. Anyway, it's awesome. That's really the digital tasks. That's where I have to do the most prioritizing, because for the 7 to 8 hours a day that I am with clients, like that's what I'm doing. Like I don't need to prioritize that. Like whoever's sitting in front of me, I'm prioritizing them. But on the other days and the other hours, I need to be in charge of managing a million irons in the fire, and I need to prioritize what those tasks are related to the digital side of the business. So I always prioritize my blog posts on schoolhabits.com. I make sure that is written and added to my website on Mondays, and the images are made, and the Instagram post that goes with it's created and posted. My Pinterest pins are in descriptions about that are up, and I've done all of the marketing that goes with that post. So on Mondays, even though I have 1,000 other things to do, my most important tasks are write blog post, market blog post, make the graphics for the blog posts for the what's called thumbnail and all that stuff. And then usually my third one is some kind of editing, either for the podcast or for a YouTube video. And under my top 3 are approximately 4 million other tasks. And I do my best to get to them. But I know at the end of the day, if all the junk hits the fan, which it tends to do because this is life, if I've completed my 3 most important tasks, I am mostly good. And then anything that I don't get to on Monday gets moved to Tuesday or to another day. Not just some random abstract time in the future, but to a specific other day. And that's the thing here. You can write all of your tasks down for a particular day, but if you don't get to them, which is fine, right? It's important to move those tasks to another day, either the very next day or another day in the week. And I know personally what my most important tasks are because I have goals in my business and my tasks are related to those goals. And there's something called the Pareto principle, which says that 80% of our results come from 20% of our efforts. So that means if you wrote down, I'm going to keep the math simple, but if you wrote down 10 tasks in a day, 2 of those tasks, so 20%, are going to give you about 80% of the results that you are looking for. So my question to you is, what is your 20%? What 2 things are you doing on most days that aren't busy work? They aren't admin work. You would use an admin block for your admin work, but that move you toward your business goals, right? And you have to know what your business goals are. Now, in terms of formatting these daily sections in your planner, that's totally up to you. You could use a certain color for your top 3 tasks. You can draw little check boxes next to your tasks so that you have something to tick off. All of that's up to you. But the recap here is that you write all of your tasks down for the day, either all at once or you prioritize them as you write them down. And then, maybe in some way, shape, or form, identify your top 3 that if the day went down, in your heart of hearts that those are the most important things for you to do. Okay, I feel like I talked really fast. I hope that answer was helpful. I think it was a great question. And again, as a reminder to everybody, you can submit your own questions by filling out the form at learnandworksmarter.com. It's right there on the homepage. You can also find links to everything I mentioned in today's episode, including my brand new program, the College Note-Taking Power System, in the show notes, which is at learnandworksmarter.com/podcast/86. Thank you for your time. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep doing the hard work, keep showing up, and never stop learning.